Christy Knowings spent 3 seasons making an entire generation of kids laugh on Nickelodeon's All That, playing characters like Penny Lane and Jessica in Whatever, right alongside a young Amanda Bynes and Kenan Thompson. She died on August 11th at just 46 years old, and the tributes that followed were warm, genuine, and full of love from the people who worked beside her. But there's a chapter of that show's history that almost none of those tributes mentioned, one that didn't come from Christy herself, but from the very people who came right after her. What they eventually revealed about that exact set, during that exact era, changed how an entire industry is remembered. Let's start with who Christy Knowings actually was, because her story deserves to be told fully before anything else. Born Christy Dunn in the Bronx in 1980, she attended the Professional Performing Arts School in Manhattan alongside her twin brother, Chris Knowings. She got her first break as a performer on And Now This, a Rosie O'Donnell-produced sketch comedy pilot for Nickelodeon. That led directly to All That, the sketch comedy series that defined kids' television throughout the late 1990s. She joined the main cast in 1997, appearing in 32 episodes across 3 seasons before stepping back in 2000, then briefly returning as a guest for the show's 10th season. She became known for a string of memorable characters: Penny Lane, Lieutenant Fondue, Jessica from the Whatever sketch alongside Amanda Bynes, and Brenda Stone, a news anchor parody on Channel 6.5 News. After leaving the show, she appeared on Nickelodeon's Figure It Out as a panelist, and later made 3 appearances on Sesame Street between 2008 and 2011, alongside her twin brother. She also pursued music, releasing a folk single called To the World in 2020. According to the show's own history, Christy Knowings left All That on her own terms. Not fired, not forced out, not part of any scandal. She simply moved on to the next chapter of her life. Her death on August 11th came after a severe asthma attack on August 7th that led to cardiac arrest and brain damage. She was hospitalized and placed on life support in Los Angeles, and her family made the decision to remove that support 4 days later. Her aunt, Tylea Joseph, announced the news on Facebook. Her manager, Al Hill, told Variety that Christy was a multi-talented lady, whether it was singing, acting, or dancing, always creating, always professional and dedicated to her work. Kenan Thompson, her former castmate, wrote on Facebook that the news hit hard, calling her a real one and one of the funniest people out here. Her death also marked the second devastating loss for the All That family in 2026 alone. Just 7 months earlier, in January, former castmate Kiana Underwood was killed in a hit-and-run accident in Brooklyn at the age of 33. Now here's the part of this story that almost never gets mentioned alongside the tributes. In 2024, 2 years before Christy's death, Investigation Discovery released a 4-part docuseries called Quiet on Set: The Dark Side of Kids TV. It examined the culture behind multiple Nickelodeon shows produced by Dan Schneider throughout the late 1990s and 2000s, All That among them. The documentary featured on-camera testimony from several of Christy's own former castmates, describing an environment that, according to their accounts, was far darker than anything that ever made it to air. Giovanni Samuels, who joined All That's cast in 2002, 2 years after Christy left, and who took over several of the roles Christy had originated on the show, spoke in the documentary about experiencing racism on set. Alongside fellow cast member Brian Hearn, Samuels alleged that black performers were frequently pushed into stereotyped roles and treated poorly by Schneider. Samuels described being told she was talented, but that the show didn't know what to do with her. So she was, in her words, stuck anywhere, which was part of why she started pitching her own sketch ideas just to find a place in the show. If you're finding this story as important as we do, this is a great time to subscribe. We cover the real, complete histories behind Hollywood's biggest names every single week, and there's one more piece of this story that puts everything in a different light. The allegations against that era of Nickelodeon extended well beyond All That. Lori Beth Denberg, who starred on the show from 1994 to 1998, just before Christy's run began, came forward separately with allegations that around her 19th birthday, Schneider invited her into his office and showed her graphic pornography, including content depicting bestiality, and that he initiated phone sex with her on multiple occasions during her time on the show. Two writers on a separate Schneider-produced series alleged he asked them repeatedly for massages and showed them pornography in the writer's room. Drake Bell, star of Drake and Josh, revealed in the same documentary that he had been sexually assaulted at 15 by dialogue coach Brian Peck, who was later sentenced to 16 months in prison after pleading no contest to child sex abuse charges. The documentary also included director Virgil Fabian and all that cast members Kyle Sullivan and Katrina Johnson, all speaking about a production culture that, according to their accounts, allowed inappropriate behavior toward minors to continue largely unchecked for years. One unnamed former employee described working for Schneider as feeling like being in an abusive relationship. Another said the environment made her trust people less, long after she'd left the show entirely. Following the documentary's release, Samuels revealed that Schneider had personally reached out to her beforehand, hoping she would publicly support him. She said she told him plainly that she had been terrified of him. Schneider responded to the documentary with a video apology, saying it was difficult to watch and that he felt awful, regretful, and sorry, while denying the most serious allegations and later filing a defamation lawsuit against the docuseries itself, calling it intentionally false and misleading. In a follow-up interview, Samuels and Hearn pushed back on the sincerity of that apology, with Hearn noting that Schneider had once worked as an actor himself and calling the apology video a performance. Hearn asked pointedly where that same apology had been years earlier, when former castmate Jeanette McCurdy published a memoir describing her own experience of exploitation on Schneider's sets, or when actress Angelique Bates had spoken out publicly long before the documentary ever aired. What makes this story more complicated is that concerns about Schneider's conduct weren't only raised after the fact. According to Business Insider's reporting, an internal investigation was launched back in 2013 after McCurdy and her Sam and Cat co-star Ariana Grande filed complaints about a producer on that specific show, and the investigation reportedly found inappropriate behavior on set. Nickelodeon's parent company at the time, Viacom, launched a separate investigation into Schneider in 2017 and 2018. That inquiry found no evidence of sexual misconduct, but did conclude that Schneider could be verbally abusive toward his staff. Russell Hicks, Nickelodeon's former president of content and production, later told reporters that a standards and practices group had reviewed every script Schneider wrote, and that programming executives watched every finished episode before it aired. In other words, there were people inside the company whose entire job was oversight of exactly these sets. For years, while Christy Knowings and her castmates were still children going to work every day. Here's what's important to say clearly. There is no public record of Christy Knowings ever making any allegation, any complaint, or any public statement about her own time on that show. She never appeared in quiet on set. She never gave an interview about her experience at Nickelodeon. By every account available, including the show's own official history, she left when she chose to, and went on to build a life in music and voice work largely outside the spotlight. Whatever her personal experience on that set actually was, she kept it to herself, and there is no evidence to suggest it was anything other than what she and her family have always described: a proud professional chapter of a busy creative life. What we do know is this: the show that made Christy Knowings a face an entire generation recognized was, according to multiple named former cast members from that exact production, operating behind the scenes in ways that only became public knowledge decades later. Her direct successor in several of her own roles became one of the loudest voices describing what that really looked like. Whether Christy herself witnessed any of it, experienced any of it, or simply had a completely different set of experiences during her 3 seasons is something only she ever really knew, and she never chose to share it. In the years since Quiet on Set aired, the fallout has reached well beyond Schneider himself. Several states have since strengthened protections for child performers, expanding requirements around on-set chaperones, mandatory reporting, and independent oversight of production environments involving minors. Changes that advocacy groups directly credit to the attention the documentary brought to an industry that had operated with minimal outside scrutiny for decades. Nickelodeon itself has never issued a comprehensive public accounting of what executives knew and when, beyond confirming that internal investigations took place in 2013 and again in 2017 and 2018. For many former child stars of that era, the documentary wasn't the beginning of a conversation. It was the first time anyone outside their own circle of castmates was willing to listen. That's worth sitting with. Because sometimes the full story of someone's career isn't about what they revealed. It's about the environment they were quietly part of, whether they ever spoke about it or not. Christy Knowings gave 3 seasons of her childhood to a show that made millions of kids laugh, and by every account she carried that experience into the rest of her life with grace, moving forward into music, into voice work, into raising a public profile entirely on her own terms. Whatever she knew, whatever she saw, whatever she simply never had reason to think twice about, she took the answer with her. The people who came after her are the ones left to tell the rest of it. That is the fuller picture behind Christy Knowings' time on All That, and the industry she was quietly part of. If you want more honest, deep dives like this one, the next video is already waiting for you. Go watch it now. We will see you there.